Picture this: an ambulance, lights flashing, siren wailing, a symbol of hope and help. But then, in an instant, it becomes the cause of a terrible accident. This is a scenario that forces two critical duties into a head-on collision: the duty to rescue and the duty to protect. Today, we're going to untangle the incredibly complex legal web of a case just like this.
So, it's a gut-wrenching question, isn't it? When a first responder, a hero in a hurry, ends up hurting people, who's to blame? That is the exact puzzle we're going to piece together right now.
All right, let's set the scene and meet the people involved. First, we have Rupert. He's the ambulance driver, and he is laser-focused on getting to a life-or-death emergency. Riding with him is his paramedic partner, Ruby. And then there's Rex, just a regular person driving down the road whose life is about to tragically intersect with theirs.
Yeah, so this is obviously way more than just a typical fender bender. Rupert was trapped between two massive responsibilities: save the patient he was racing to and keep everyone else on the road safe. It's a true high-stakes dilemma. And here's the kicker: the fact that makes this so difficult. Rupert was doing over 100 kilometers per hour in a built-up area. Now, on paper, that just sounds like an open and shut case of reckless driving, right? But in the eyes of the law, well, it's not quite that simple.
To really figure this out, we need to look at it through a legal lens. We're going to use the legal concept of negligence, and we'll break it down into its three essential parts. So, first things first, what exactly is negligence? Well, to put it simply, it's when you have a responsibility to be careful, what the law calls a duty of care, and you drop the ball on that responsibility and someone gets hurt because of it. It's a failure to act as carefully as the law says you should have.
Think of this as the court's three-step checklist. To prove someone was negligent, you have to tick all three of these boxes. So a judge is going to ask, number 1, did the person even have a duty to be careful in the first place? 2, did they fail to live up to that duty? And 3, did that failure actually cause the harm? Let's run Rupert's situation through this test.
All right, so step 1, this one's a total gimme. Any person who drives a car on a public road automatically has a duty of care to their passengers and to everyone else out there. It's like the most basic rule of the road. So Rupert absolutely owed a duty to both Ruby and Rex. First box, checked.
Okay, duty of care is established. Easy. But now we get to the really juicy part of the test, the part where this whole case gets incredibly tricky. Did Rupert actually breach that duty?
So how does the law figure this out? Well, it uses this idea of a reasonable person. The question isn't whether Rupert did his absolute personal best. The question is, did he act the way a reasonably careful and sensible person would have acted in those exact same circumstances? Now, this isn't just a gut feeling. The court actually has a 4-point checklist they use to balance everything out. They'll look at 1. How likely was it that someone would get hurt? 2. If they did get hurt, how bad would it be? 3. How difficult or costly would it have been to avoid the risk? And finally, and this is the big one for our case, what was the social benefit of what he was doing?
And this chart, wow, it just lays out Rupert's impossible situation perfectly. You can see on one side, the social utility of his mission, saving a life, is sky high. Can't get much higher. But on the other side, the probability of harm from flooring it at over 100 kph is also incredibly high. And the court has to somehow weigh these two massive competing forces.
So you look at all this, and you're probably thinking, yeah, Rupert's in deep trouble. Driving that fast just seems like an obvious failure to be a reasonable driver. But hold on, the story is not over yet. There's a huge twist coming.
And this is where we get to the one legal argument that could flip this entire case on its head. It's a defense that was basically made for situations exactly like this one.
You see, the law isn't totally inflexible. It gets that real life is messy, especially in a crisis. It recognizes that in an emergency, the whole idea of what's reasonable can change. An action that would be totally reckless on a normal Tuesday might be considered reasonable when a life is hanging in the balance.
And check out this powerful quote from a real landmark case. It really gets to the heart of the matter. The saving of life or limb justifies taking considerable risk. This single sentence established the principle that the urgent need to save someone can justify taking risks that would normally be completely out of bounds. This is what could get Rupert off the hook.
Okay, but here's another layer of complexity. The law doesn't necessarily see both victims in the exact same light. For Rex, just a random member of the public, Rupert's duty of care is pretty straightforward. But for Ruby, his colleague, it's a bit different. You could argue she knew the risks of the job, But the law is clear that just because she's a rescuer doesn't mean Rupert gets a free pass to be careless with her safety. He still owed her a duty of care.
All right, let's pull all these threats together. We've got the duty, the potential breach, and that huge emergency exception. So, what's the final answer? Where does the law land on this?
This table really breaks down the legal tug-of-war here. In the against Rupert column, you have the hard facts, the crazy speed, the clear duty he owed everyone, and the awful outcome. But in the for Rupert column, the arguments are just as powerful. He was responding to an emergency. The social value of his work is immense. And hey, he was just doing his job.
And that's the thing, right? There is no slam dunk answer here. It's entirely possible that a court would look at this whole situation and decide that because of the life or death emergency, Rupert's driving, while risky, was not an actual breach of his duty of care. He could, believe it or not, be found not liable at all.
So, in the end, a case like this isn't just about one tragic accident. It leaves us with a really profound and honestly uncomfortable question. Where do we, as a society, draw the line? How should the law balance the desperate need to save one person against the duty to protect everyone else? It's a question with no easy answers, and it's one the legal system struggles with every single day.